Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. The pace of innovation is all that matters. Elon has said this many times, but most people don't really understand what this actually means and how fast Tesla's pace of innovation is, and what it would take for other car companies to catch up to Tesla or just keep up with Tesla. Well, they would pretty much have to change everything about their companies, because in this video I will show you the steps that are needed to do what Tesla does, because the pace of innovation is all that matters. The pace, not the innovation itself. And Tesla has been able to reduce the cost of changes to practically zero, so they can do multiple changes every single day. I have just had another interview with Joe Justice for my upcoming book, and I really think your mind will be blown by just how many new products is introduced to Tesla every single day. No one will be able to keep up with this, because no one is willing to make the change that are needed to get Tesla's speed, because they will literally have to change the whole company and how it's run and how much power they give to their employees. So let me show you all of these steps, and you will see for yourself why this is simply not physically possible for Ford or GM or Volkswagen or whoever to do what Tesla does. This is probably one of the most important things to understand when it comes to understanding Tesla, and not many people truly understand the pace of Tesla. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. So companies are learning Scrum and other tools to become more agile, and those tools work great if you have a company with a yearly budget or longer, because with Scrum you are working with these weekly or monthly sprint to make some changes. So if BMW or Volkswagen could ever become that fast and agile, that would be a big success. But these tools do not work for Tesla, as Tesla is working much faster. They don't wait until the end of the week or the end of the month or the end of the year to make a change. They make a change on a daily basis, multiple times a day. So when Elon says pace of innovation is all that matters, he means exactly that. And his companies are hardwired to work this way. Not many know how all of this works and how Tesla works inside their factory in comparison to other car companies. But one man does, and that is Joe Justice, who has been head of Agile at Tesla, but has also worked for Volkswagen and BMW and Toyota and many other companies and try to help them to become more agile, but also has his own little car company, Wikispeed. Joe is known for his extreme manufacturing techniques he invented with Wikispeed, the car company that holds the world record in fastest production of a road legal car. So Joe doesn't only know how Tesla actually work inside the factory, but also knows how the other OEMs are working in their factory, and has tried himself to build a car from the ground up from start to finish. Joe has even written the book Scrum Master and is teaching companies to become more agile. So not many people know as much about this stuff and Tesla's speed and agility in comparison to other car companies as Joe does. That is why I interviewed him for me and Randy's new book, to get the secret of what it is that makes Tesla able to be so agile, and what is needed for other companies that wants to get to that Tesla speed. So here are numbers of things that have to be in place for a company to be as agile as Tesla, and we will dive into these topics and I will explain what they all mean. You will then come to see that doing what Tesla is doing is pretty much physically impossible for other car companies to do so. But we will get to that. Firstly, here are some of the things other companies will have to change or do in order to get to Tesla's insane pace of innovation. So reducing the cost to change to practically zero, that is the main goal. And to do that, these things have to be in place. An agile supply chain, no budget, autonomous testing and approval, digital twins of the cars, flat organization, empowering employees to have as much to say as the CEO when it comes to changes, and production cells. So let's start with the supply chain. So the supply chain contract at Tesla is 1 page long and written in plain English according to Joe. So you don't need a legal review of the contract. Everyone can read and understand the contract and make changes to it. So it becomes fast and easy to make changes to the contract with suppliers. So everyone can do this within Tesla. So this is why they can make a change to the contract every single day if they have to get new parts. So Tesla has a very agile partnership with their supplier. Tesla will make an overall contract for maybe 5 years where they will commit to buying parts from the supplier, but the supplier has to commit that what Tesla wants can change on a daily basis. Tesla is arguably the most successful company working with suppliers. One of the best examples of this is probably the chip shortage that have happened for all manufacturing and shortage in general of materials. So many were forced to shut down production because of missing chips, because the supplier of that chip could no longer deliver. When Tesla, on the other hand, found out about the shortage of chips from one of their suppliers, they started ordering other chips from other suppliers and started immediately to figure out how to write new software for these new chips that were coming from many different suppliers. And within 2 weeks, Tesla had 18 new chips with new software in production. No one else on the planet operate at those speed. Many are still here a year or two later struggling with chip shortage. Tesla is not. Then there is the whole thing about the budget that not many people are talking about or even understand that this has something to do with the pace of innovation. One of the reasons many companies can't make changes on the fly as Tesla does is when something is disrupting the supply chain or when it comes up with a new idea and can't just implement it because it is not in the budget. You have probably experienced this yourself at the companies you have worked at. I know I have. You come up with a great idea that can maybe make your company 50% more efficient or whatever it might be, but it requires you to spend some money. So you ask your manager for permission, and he might get excited about the great idea you have and go ask his boss or his boss and then ask the boss of the company, and he says, no, of course not. It is not in the budget. So you have to wait until next year where you can get the idea into the budget if you operate with a yearly budget, of course. But Volkswagen has just made the 9-year budget. That is how fast they can make changes. So if you within Volkswagen come up with something new that can improve the car or the production line, great. It can probably be implemented in 10 years' time. If it is not absolutely urgent, like when something like the war in Ukraine happens and you suddenly can't get some parts for your car because they are made in the Ukraine, well, you are forced to find other suppliers, of course, but this would take a lot of time and money for someone like Volkswagen. First, they have to shut down the production because they don't have the parts anymore, and that will of course cost a lot of money to change the supply and change the production line to use these new products instead of the old products. But that is not in the budget. So they need to get approval from the board to change this in the budget, because only at board level can Volkswagen make the changes. This is why this is so difficult in a company like Volkswagen, because there are so many steps to be made just to make a little change to the supply chain or the production, because it has to go all the way up to board level. This will never happen at Tesla because Tesla doesn't have a budget. There is no goal or target for you to meet. There are only the mission and constantly improving the product. And remember, the factory is the real product, so that includes the factory and the production line as well as the product that comes out of the factory. So when you don't have a budget, you don't have to wait for approval to make the change that costs money. If it is the right thing to do, you just do it, no matter who you are, because there is no budget to follow, but everyone has access to how much money Tesla has, what is being spent, and who is spending it. But everyone can spend it. And that brings us to the empowering of the employees. This is also because every employee at Tesla is empowered to make changes and spend the company's money if necessary. Joe Justice had these experiences all the time, but a great example Joe has talked about many times was when someone came up with an idea to change the speed of how fast the car could charge by making some changes to the tube that connected the charging port to the battery pack. Joe joined the people working on this, and within 3 hours from the idea came to be until it was tested and road legally approved and in production, it took 3 hours. 3 hours. So because the employees don't have to ask a manager for permission, or there was no budget holding them back, but they were empowered to do this, they can make these changes every single day. And all Tesla employees can do this. They all do self-management, and because of that, these big changes were implemented into the car and the production line immediately. Such a big change would probably have taken between 5 to 7 years for any other car manufacturer, as Joe points out. This leads us to the automated testing of the car that Tesla does, that empowers the employees to get instant feedback if the new idea they have actually works, making the product better or the production line faster and so on. That is all automated, because the other bottleneck is approval and certification, because most governments take a year to review a new product, especially one like a car. So how do you get that review to be every day? You negotiate with the government's entity and ask, what do you need? The goal is not to change the approver, because that could probably take years or decades, if even possible. The goal is to give them everything they wish they had instantly. So when they get all they need right away, they can approve it in 10 minutes instead of a year. So Tesla automated every car to put itself through all the tests needed to be approved instantly to be road legal. So every single test a car has to go through to become road legal, except the crash test, every single car at Tesla goes through. Tesla has something they call factory mode the cars go into. From the moment it is assembled, the car puts itself through every required road legal test. Every single car does this by themselves. This is very important to understand, because if you only test every 1,000, every 10,000 car, as many normal car companies do, you can't introduce changes until there has been 10,000 cars produced from now. That is the cadence of your company's ability to make changes. Small changes. Tesla does not work with this kind of cadence. They implement immediately, and Tesla is able to do that because they test every single car. Every car Tesla makes has what is called a digital twin in the cloud. So here Tesla knows everything about every single car, what glue is used, what chips are in it, what wires are used, and so on, and completely digital copy of the car. So Tesla service employees also know what is in this specific Tesla when they have to repair one, but Tesla doesn't have a huge warehouse with thousands of old spare parts. So if something is wrong with the wire in your car, you will not get a new wire of the old version of the wire put into your car. Tesla will put in the new version of the wire into your car. That is also how they manage supply for repairs. They don't keep a huge inventory of old parts. They just order the new versions of the part. So the testing of the car is pretty much the bottleneck of how fast you can make changes. So because every car goes through every single test, Tesla can make changes to every single car that comes off the production line. And to give you some idea of just how many changes Tesla actually does, Joe Justice told me about just how many new parts are introduced into Tesla. In Tesla, there are 60 new hardware parts introduced each day. Let that sink in for a moment. Most other car companies have a 2.5-year minor model change cycle, where a number of small changes of parts happen every 2.5 years. And depending on the model, they have 5 to 10 years model changes, where most of the parts in the car is changed. So that is the cadence of change at the legacy automakers for small and big changes. This might give you an idea of just how fast Tesla works compared to other car companies. Small changes take 2.5 years, where Tesla makes about 60 small product changes every single day. Take into mind that this is hardware changes, not software changes. This is simply unheard of by any other company on the planet, except maybe Elon Musk's other companies like SpaceX. But no other automaker makes 60 hardware changes a day. No one. So because of that, Tesla of course also makes software changes every single day. We might only see a software update being pushed out to the fleet every 2 to 4 weeks, but internally Tesla makes changes to its software every single day, something no other car company will be able to copy until they become a software company themselves, because right now most software for car manufacturers are written by many different software companies and not by themselves. So they have to get multiple software companies to talk together and make sure that changes they want to make doesn't make issues in the software from other software companies. And you simply don't become a great software company overnight that can make world-leading and compelling software for electric cars. This little detail on its own could take the automakers a decade just to get right. The reason Tesla can make all of these changes every single day and still keep production going, because we all know Tesla is the fastest growing large manufacturer in history, right? Even beating Ford with the introduction of the Model T over 100 years ago. Tesla does this by having invented a whole new way of producing cars. Tesla no longer uses simple production lines. They use production cells, as I have made a whole video about, because if you introduce a change to a line, you have to stop the production line all the time. So a production line is very efficient in making the same thing over and over again, but is very inefficient to make changes. That means when Tesla wants to make a change, they just shut down one production cell and all the other cells are still producing cars. When that one cell is ramped up to 100%, they start implementing it into other cells. That makes it possible for Tesla to keep making changes and innovations to its product and production without ever slowing down. And because of the automated testing, every team at the production cell can quickly get approval from the car and the AI system that is running the factory. If this change made the car better, if yes, they implement the change immediately. So the true bottleneck for innovation is actually this automated system called factory mode. This is a game-changing software that only Tesla has. You of course need all the other pieces like empowering your employees to make those changes, and to do that you need no budget and a very flat organization, and to keep track of all those different versions of the car with different parts you need a digital twin of the car, and to constantly make innovation you need production cells so you don't constantly stop the production, and to constantly get new products introduced you need a very agile partnership with a supplier that can also make changes to the contract in minutes, and you need to be able to get road legal approval of the car in minutes as well. All of this to reduce the cost of making changes to almost zero, which is the goal. But without the automated testing, you will never get there. So how do all the other companies get as agile as Tesla? Well, they have to change everything about the company. From the structure of the company, how they hire people, what they tell people, how their production line works, how they work with the supplier, how they use a budget and managers. They need to write whole new artificial intelligence software to run the whole factory so the cars themselves can go through every single test needed to satisfy the governments around the world. Oh, is that it? Well, we all know that changing the culture of a company is pretty much impossible. But every step on this list of why Tesla is able to make the pace of innovation so unbelievable fast will take world-class innovation. And I think this is simply just not feasible for the old legacy automakers to keep up with, and why I'm willing to bet that no one of the legacy automakers will never catch up or keep up with Tesla. Because just try to imagine the Ford Mustang Mach-E that has been on the road for almost 2 years. The Mach-E that comes off the assembly line today is almost 100% identical to the Mach-E that came off the assembly line 2 years ago. Where the Tesla Model Y that has been produced a little over 2 years now is a completely different car underneath than what it was 2 years ago. It only had 1 gigacasting, now it has 2 gigacasting, and that gigacasting itself has even lost 4 kilos in weight since they made the first one, according to Sandy Munro, that has ripped them apart. The new version is also using totally different batteries. Tesla's own 4680 cell that is in a structural battery pack now compared to the battery modules in the old Model Y. Even the way they assemble the car is completely changed because of the gigacasting, where there's no longer a flaw in the bottom of the car. That is where the battery pack, including seat and carpet and middle console, comes up. The production is completely different from how Tesla did it 2 years ago. The Ford Mach-E and the way it's being produced is almost the same as it was 2 years ago. When keeping in mind that it will take old automakers about 5 to 10 years to make huge changes, we should not expect any new big innovations for the Mach-E for the next 3 to 8 years. But in just 3 years, Tesla will have made about 3,000 changes to the Model Y, all the way it's being produced. Or we could look at it in another way. If both Tesla and Ford today invented a new product that would make their cars 50% more efficient, because this could of course happen that someone other than Tesla comes up with something that is just as innovative as Tesla. But as Elon says, it's the pace that is all that matters. So if Ford and Tesla comes up with something that will improve both their cars with 50% more efficiency, well, it will probably take Ford 5 to 7 years to implement this new innovation they have, where Tesla will implement it today. Ford simply cannot keep up with that, and never will, as they have to change the whole company, how it's run, how they make cars, and its culture. I don't think the leaders of the company wants to do that. We also see this in real time right now, as we have heard about Volkswagen's new Trinity platform, which is their next version of their electric car platform. But even though we have known about this for a couple of years now, it will still take 4 years before they can implement it into their production. So it has taken Volkswagen 6 to 7 years to implement this change, if not more, because that is just how long we have known about it. But Tesla would implement it today. So that is why I am very confident that Tesla will not only keep their lead, but rapidly extend their lead in their electric cars and the way they produce cars and the factories themselves. Tesla is even inventing new ways of doing things that need them to invent new tools to make those things, because they don't exist. Just like the plaid motor that were wrapped in a carbon fiber sleeve to be able to produce a much higher rounds per minute. These machines that makes those sleeves didn't exist, so they had to make it themselves. Like Elon have said, every production line, a new production system was invented. Instead of playing chess with the same pieces as everyone else, create new pieces. And that is exactly what Tesla has done. They might be playing chess, but they do so with 32 queens. And thank you for watching. And until next time, take care out there and be nice.